Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
When I was in college, again, my dad, he taught at Michigan Tech University, which is in the tiny town of Houghton, Michigan, which is about as far north in Michigan as you can go. It's in the Upper Peninsula. And I moved up there when I was in third grade. But my dad was a professor there and then ultimately got into administration. He was a VP of public service or something like that. It was a great job for him. It was a great place to grow up, great everything. But I remember there was a particular time where he was always, getting, there's, at any university, there's lots that needs to be done. And there was one particular job that he offered to somebody. And the job was, there's like information boards. This is pre-electronic. So you had to go and actually put the letters on the board and whatnot. And there were various places around campus that it had to be done. And there was somebody I knew that my dad offered the position to. It was a student. And she turned it down. It wasn't a get rich type of position, right? It was a great position for a student because your hours were somewhat flexible, and didn't take a whole lot of time. You weren't sitting at a desk checking IDs or something like that, where you are, you weren't working in a cafeteria. It's just, hour per hour, it was a great thing. And my dad was just totally taken back by it. Just didn't make any sense. Why would this person not take this position? I remember him being befuddled by it. And I didn't know the answer either. I knew the person, and quite frankly, didn't give it a whole lot of thought. But over the years, I've run into other situations where people are what I would, I guess, term irrational. And, I've put more thought into those situations because they've hit closer to home with respect to me. And we like to think that as humans, we're rational beings, and that's, economics, the bedrock of economics is, essentially, the main assumption in economics is that we're all rational human beings are going to make rational decisions. And we don't. Not always. We're not always irrational, but there are times where we're not rational. This is a podcast about relationships, and it's, this is an important topic, or a topic worth discussing, because we do have interactions with people, and for whatever reason, as I indicated with the story with my dad, people will do something or not do something that's just totally inexplicable. And it's, it's hard to put your finger on it. I'm sure with respect to my dad's situation that there was somebody, the person, who the position was offered to, wonderful person, not irrational in any way, shape, or form other than that. I'm sure there was a reason, right? They had their reason. And to the outside, there was, it seemed irrational, but I'm sure there was a reason to it. But I got to thinking about that and just thinking about irrational behavior a few weeks back, because I read an article, and it talked about what they call the ultimatum game. And what the ultimatum game is, and these are economists and psychologists, and they're bringing students into the lab, for the most part students, maybe some other adults in there, and they're doing different things with them, trying to see how they behave. And what they did with the ultimatum game was it brought people in, and there were two people, and they went to one and said, "Hey, you get $100. Now you have to, to get that money, you've got to share it with the other person here. And you can determine how it gets shared. You can determine if you give them all the money. You can determine if you give them half the money. You can determine whatever. And you get to keep, if they agree, then you get to keep whatever. And if they don't agree, then neither of you get anything. And that's the ultimatum game. And so you really kind of put in a situation where, okay, somebody's giving me $100. I would like to keep $100, but I can't keep $100 because I've got to get this other person to agree with me as to the best way for this to be split. Now, obviously, if I went to the other person and said, "Hey, I'm going to give you all $100," they would absolutely agree. I don't know why I would do that. That would be irrational, right? And nobody did that. For the most part, what they found was is that people were willing to split the money anywhere between 50-50. People would come in and, okay, I got $100. I came in here with nothing. I could leave here with nothing. How about I give you half? Or they might say, you know what, I'm in control of the 100. So I've kind of, I it's really my opportunity. How about I give you 40% and I'll keep 60%? And anytime the split was anywhere between 40 and 50%, by and large, the other person said, "Yeah, I'll take that." And I talked with my wife about this yesterday in preparing to do this particular program, and I was kind of going through the study with her, and I was asking her, it's like, okay, if I offered it all to you, you would take it, sure. And that kind of went. I didn't go all the way down, but I said 50-50. Would you be up for it? 40-60. Would you be up for it? 30-70. She said she would be up for it, and her rationale was, listen, I don't have anything anyway, so why not? Why would I not just take whatever you offer me? And at that point, I said, well, how about $1? I'll give you $1 and I'll keep 99. And then she kind of hedged a little bit. I don't know. But what they found in the ultimatum game studies is that you generally when the offer was somewhere below 30%, it was rejected, which in a way is kind of irrational behavior. Because you've come into this lab and neither of us have gotten any money, and they've offered me 100, but I've got to share it. And if I'm giving you 30, it's $30 you didn't walk in here with. But generally speaking, the people who were made those, we'll call them low ball offers, if you will, the people who were made those low ball offers, um, it was kind of their way of saying, screw you. You're not being fair. You're not being fair with me. So I'm going to punish you. Yes, I don't get 30, but you get nothing. And so you had the opportunity to be fair about things, and you weren't. And so you end up getting nothing. Now, there's a lot to this, and you have to wonder how people come up with these studies. Just kind of thinking through how people will behave, and I can see people in the academic environment just kind of wondering. They want to tinker with people. It's one thing to kind of mess with chemicals and I kind of know what's going to happen here, or mathematical formulas. But when we start working with people, it's probably they're probably not ending up with what they think people will do, because again, largely in an economic, economists look at people as being rational, and it's not rational to walk away from $30 when it's being offered to you for free. All you're doing is you're punishing the other person, and I guess the other person really doesn't have a way of retaliating against you. It's done. Neither of us, we're walking out here, both of us empty handed. You can be mad at me, but you're the one who weren't fair. It wasn't fair. But, by and large, we try to do, we try to operate in a rational sense, but sometimes we don't. So, the lesson with respect to the ultimatum game is, and well, there's lots of lessons to it. I think the first lesson is that we have to understand that people are not always rational. Back to my original story, person, in their mind, they might be rational. There might be a total explanation. But as we have relationships with people, they might decline to do things. They might not opt to be in business with us. And I can think of times through the years where, I remember there was a situation where somebody came to me and early on in my legal career, they wanted to partner up. And this person was a pretty well established attorney. It's like wanted to partner up with me. I had office space. They needed office space. And it was just kind of, and I remember declining the offer. And I talked to my wife about it. And from my standpoint, it was very rational. It was like, you know what? I really don't know you. I didn't say that, but I'm like, it's my wife and I. You don't really know the guy. Why would you want to, can't you date before you get married? Was kind of my wife's response to it. Now, I'm sure from that person's standpoint, they were totally taken back. Like, why wouldn't you want to team up with me? I have expertise. I've got clients that you can help, that things I can't do. And to me, there was just something inside that said, yeah, I'm not, you know, and I'm sure to them it seemed, it didn't seem rational. My decision didn't seem rational. To me, it made total sense. Well, in hindsight, it was perfect. The voice inside was totally correct in hindsight. But that's the first thing we need to keep in mind as we deal with people and have relationships with people, is that they're not always going to do rational things, and people come to us with no brainers, and we end up declining those no brainers. And sometimes there's a good reason why we turn down those no brainers, and it all comes down to trust. But we need to understand that not everybody is going to be rational. The second lesson in the ultimatum game that I take away from it is that you have to be fair. You have to be fair. And as it indicated in here, is anytime somebody made an offer of, hey, I've got $100 and I can keep a portion of this if you're willing to take a portion of it. And how about 50? We'll do it 50-50. Hey, great. Let's go to lunch. We both have $50. Um, you know, Anytime people are fair, they're willing to do something. But when it's not fair, they're going to quietly retaliate. And it might seem irrational to us that they would do that. Geez, I offered you $25. Why didn't you take the $25? Because I'm not happy with how you're treating me. I think it's unfair. I mean, you came in, you walked into this room just like I walked into the room, and you have not but for a flip of a coin, that opportunity would have been mine, and I would have been much fairer than that. And I'm not going to reward you for being unfair. And we do that. People do those sorts of mental gymnastics all the time. I have found myself doing those sorts of things. People will come to me. I remember years ago, somebody coming to me again when I was practicing law and saying, "Hey, I've got a client. What would you be willing to bill them per hour to do whatever work?" And I would, give me your best price, Frank. Give me your best price. And I gave them my best price, and I don't know, $125 an hour, right? This is years ago. And they said, "Great, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bill them $250, and we'll both make $125 an hour." And I remember turning it down. "Hey, I'm not interested." Well, why not? I could have made $125 an hour. To me, the person was unfair. They were unfair because what I had done for them was something totally different. Hey, here's a client. You can have a client. You can bill the client whatever you want to bill them. And what this person was doing was going to the client, being the middleman. And I guess there's some value in being the middleman, but I'm doing all the work and you're making as much money as I'm making. And to me, that seemed unfair. And so I don't want any part of it. I don't know how this is going to be presented. I don't know how it's going to be perceived. I don't know how this might reflect on me. This particular client knowing that, hey, Frank is doing work for me and it's $250 an hour, and it wasn't worth $250 an hour, and them out there talking about me. So in my mind, it was rational, that I didn't want anything to do with it, but there was also a punitive aspect of it as well. So think about the ultimatum game as you're out there looking to interact and do deals, if you will, air quotes, with people. You really, you need to be fair. And if you're not fair, you'll probably, find out in a hurry that it's not, because things aren't accepted. And then you need to be open to the possibility, the very real possibility that they might not be somebody who is open to it, and it might not make any sense to you at all. And that's just the way humans are. From their standpoint, there's probably some rational reason as to why things aren't going forward. Just something to keep track of. Get a chance to look it up online, the Ultimatum game, if you would.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.